Every leader is gearing up for the new year. New goals, new strategies, new technology, new expectations. But your team cannot accelerate into the new year if they're still tripping over the same internal friction from this one. In this video, I'm going to give you 5 critical mandates you need to focus on right now if you want your team to move faster, align stronger, and execute with clarity in this new year. Because no matter how much planning you do in January, misalignment doesn't disappear with the turn of the calendar. So stick around. Hello, my friends. In case you're new to my channel, I'm Alicia Couri, the CEO of Audacious Concepts, Inc., a boutique leadership advisory firm specializing in helping leaders accelerate their time to impact in their first 90 days in a leadership role and helping their teams become high-performing and results-driven by improving communication, collaboration, and cooperation. So let's dive back into these 5 critical mandates. To frame this, I want to share your hidden cost of carrying misalignment into the new year. You see, your team isn't just carrying tasks and responsibilities into the next year. They might be carrying unresolved tension, silenced frustrations, misinterpreted expectations, behavioral clashes, instinctive friction, and months of unclear priorities. Business doesn't pause for emotional residue. Remember research from Dr. Cy Wakeman that stated 2.5 hours of every day per employee is spent on emotional waste. That is, until you, the leader, decides to do something about it. Technology doesn't wait for clarity, and AI isn't going to compensate for human friction. You cannot build new momentum on a foundation that hasn't been repaired. So let's dive into these mandates. Mandate number 1, resolve the friction that you've been avoiding. You see, unaddressed tension doesn't fade, it compounds. Look, I know most of us hate conflict, and many avoid it like the plague, but your team needs to know how to have healthy conflict, the kind that sparks innovation. But if your team is still carrying interpersonal friction, resentment, repeated communication breakdowns, or long-standing behavioral collisions, that will be the anchor dragging down Q1. And if you don't clear that friction now, understand behavioral drives and how to have productive conflict, this becomes next year's bottleneck. Here's mandate number 2. Rebuild a shared interpretation of the vision. Most teams don't share a vision. They share words, and they each interpret those words differently. You might have heard or said, but I told them the vision. That's not the same as building a shared, aligned vision. For 2026, every person on your team must be able to explain and embody the direction, the priorities, the why behind both the direction and priorities, how their role connects to the vision and mission, and the behaviors outlined that will bring them to success. If each person has a slightly different interpretation, execution fractured. Shared vision is not language, it's alignment. Mandate number 3. Recalibrate roles, expectations, and decision rights. If you've not done this work yet, what are you waiting for? Here are 5 areas misalignment needs to be sorted out. Crystal clarity around who owns what, who decides what, who executes what, how decisions get made, and what success really looks like. Right now, too many teams are entering Q1 with overlapping responsibilities, unclear boundaries, and decision authority scattered across the org chart. Then wonder why things have stalled by February. Ambiguity is the silent killer of execution. Mandate number 4, prioritize behavioral and instinctive awareness. Here's the part that unfortunately too often gets overlooked. Your team's behavioral drives and cognitive instincts don't magically realign on January 1st. They remain exactly what they were all year, and they get louder under pressure. As a predictive index and Colby certified consultant, I've seen how these behavioral drives create conflict in high pressure situations. High dominance people push harder and can bulldoze over others. Your stabilizers hold tighter to what's familiar. Your detail oriented players slow the pace way down until they get more information. Your high drivers and initiating quick starts might jump in without alignment. If you've worked with people, you've probably encountered one or more of these individuals. If you haven't done the work to understand them, to understand how you interact with them, your team is operating without an understanding of each other's hard wiring and will misinterpret behavior as attitude. And without this reset, the same collisions repeat all year long. Let's round this all up with mandate number 5. Establish alignment rituals for the new year. Alignment isn't a one-time event. It's an ongoing practice. If you don't identify the behaviors that sustain alignment into your operating system, misalignment becomes the default. You cannot coast into clarity. You must engineer it with behavioral agreements and operational processes to maintain alignment. Let me repeat it. A team cannot accelerate into the new year if they're still tripping over the same internal friction from this one. That friction is not going to go away on its own. It must be confronted and corrected. I was recently at a networking event where a leader was sharing with me that a few months ago, his executive team had a strategy day where one of their leaders organized and facilitated it. Now, in my previous video, I talked about facilitation of your meetings and your training and your strategy sessions. I asked him how it went. And he was so excited. He said, "Oh my gosh, so many great ideas surfaced for us." Then I asked, "How is it going?" He thought for a second and ended with, "You know what? Nothing's happened. Nothing's really moved forward since that great meeting that we had." In his mind, it was a great session, but in reality, it failed to produce any tangible results. Have you ever been there? Leaders, I'm talking to you. You cannot facilitate and participate at the same time. And here are a few reasons why. First of all, your title alone changes what people are willing to say in front of you if you're the leader of that team. Secondly, you don't see your own blind spots. That's why they're called blind spots. Third, you can't debrief your strategy session on your own to fully know the scope of what went down. Fourth, your team may not tell you the whole truth, and that's why the dynamics persist. And let me just add to this. All the strategy and tactics in the world cannot execute themselves, and AI can't execute them either. I've encountered so many leaders who are just brilliant, but they don't have the knowledge of the people or behavioral data or the training to effectively evaluate the people who are the ones who can execute the mission, the vision, and the strategy. That's where things stall. like in the case I shared a minute ago. That's why AI won't fix misalignment. It will accelerate whatever system that already exists in your business. You need to optimize your talent for the future. And this is why the year-end alignment reset must be facilitated. Only a neutral expert can surface truth without triggering defense, decode behavioral collision without blame, name the dynamics you're too close to see, rebuild psychological safety, align interpretation, not just information. This is how you start a new year with clarity instead of chaos. So before you finalize your 2026 goals, before you launch into new initiatives, before you introduce new AI tools, ask yourself, have we cleared the friction? Have we rebuilt shared interpretation? Have we reset expectations? Have we aligned behaviorally and instinctively? Have we established rituals that protect our alignment? If not, you're not ready for acceleration. You're preparing for another year of unnecessary friction. If you want support around assessing your team's alignment and creating a facilitated reset, you'll find the alignment survey and resources below. Then reach out to us, support@aliciacouri.com. And I'll see you in our next video in the new year. Happy holidays, everyone. And here's to an audaciously aligned team for 2026 and beyond.